Ghislaine Maxwell has filed a motion in the 2015 defamation case brought against her by the late Virginia Giuffre, where Ghislaine Maxwell is now requesting a federal judge who previously presided over that case block 90,000 documents which have yet to be produced under the Epstein Transparency Act. And apparently these documents relate to depositions that Ghislaine Maxwell took in the Virginia Giuffre case, 90,000 potentially very devastating documents that are still being concealed by the Department of Justice, which have not yet been produced. And as I've been digging into some of the recent filings by Ghislaine Maxwell, I find them highly suspicious for a number of reasons that I want to discuss with you. And I believe that there is a concerted plan being implemented here with the Trump regime to try to make it appear that they're adversarial with the Department of Justice in kind of public filings, but in fact, they're working hand in hand in concert with each other, in my opinion, as part of a operation, I believe, that was set up between Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney turned number 2 at the Department of Justice, and Ghislaine Maxwell back when she was interviewed in Tallahassee over the summer, and then she was moved to the Club Fed facility in Camp Bryan, Texas. You know, it's notable to me that when Ghislaine Maxwell was deposed fairly recently by the House Oversight Committee, she had a lawyer by her side named David Oscar Marcus. So she has, and David Oscar Marcus is a top lawyer in the Florida area. He's like very close friends with Todd Blanche. He represents a lot of high profile people. He's a very expensive lawyer to hire, but he was the lawyer who announced at the beginning of Ghislaine's deposition before the House that she would be invoking her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. And he was the guy who said, well, if Donald Trump just gives her a pardon or gives her a commutation, she'll say favorable things about Donald Trump. I have the receipts to that. I'll show you what his opening statement said, but he was the lawyer sitting with her. In this civil case involving Virginia Giuffre, who now recently died by suicide, but she filed a defamation case against Ghislaine Maxwell back in 2015 for statements that Ghislaine Maxwell was making about Giuffre. And then that case ultimately gathered information which helped lead to the criminal prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. In that case, apparently Ghislaine Maxwell still has lawyers and top legal minds who charge a lot of money. I mean, I know this law firm. She's represented by 2 partners at this law firm. One is named Laura M over here. You see her over here. And Laura is a partner at this law firm. You can see right here. And she's on this pleading right here. There's Laura. And then there's Jeffrey Pagluccia, and the firm is Haddon, Morgan, and Foreman PC. They're a big firm in Colorado. Again, they charge high hourly rates. So she's represented by top lawyers in these situations. Why am I bringing this up? Ben, who cares that she's represented by big law firms or whatever? Because in another federal proceeding where she's filing a habeas petition, she claims she doesn't have the ability to hire a lawyer. She's kind of playing poverty, and she claims she can't hire anybody at all. And she was at first being represented by David Oscar Marcus there. He moved off of that case, but he's obviously still representing her in some capacity because he was before the House Oversight Committee. But the question ultimately becomes is, well, then why is she representing herself if she can apparently afford or finagle a way to get all of these lawyers representing her, especially in a 2015 defamation case involving Virginia Giuffre, where there's issues that have just arisen recently? Why doesn't she have a lawyer in her habeas petition? Because the fix is in. And I want to explain to you what's happening behind the scenes here. She's claiming before federal Judge Engelmeyer in the Southern District of New York that she's pro per. In other words, she can't find a lawyer and she plays poverty, that she's unable to do this and that she can't access the documents and she needs help. And if she just had really good legal minds, she may be able to file her habeas petition sooner, but she's just going to need additional time, Judge, because she's pro per. In my opinion, she's being helped out. I don't know by which lawyers behind the scene, but in my opinion, lawyers are assisting her with her paperwork and her motions. That's just my opinion, of course. And she's saying that she's pro per and she can't find lawyers to Judge Engelmeyer in connection with her habeas petition so that she could delay the proceedings there even further. Why does she want to delay the proceedings? Because she wants to be able to say, oh, I can't testify anywhere, so I'm going to have to keep invoking my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination while I have this habeas petition that's pending. And then by trying to delay this towards the end of Donald Trump's term, I believe the fix is in that there's already a deal for Donald Trump to grant her clemency, either give her a pardon or a commutation. So she's going to try to drag this out as long as possible. And just so you know, she's already exhausted all of her appeals, right? She's a convicted child sex trafficker. She, in the case that went before Judge Engelmeyer, that other judge is no longer with us, is no longer there. Judge Engelmeyer took over the case. It's in the Southern District of New York, right? Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter, was one of the top prosecutors in the Southern District of New York. She was the AUSA, Assistant U.S. Attorney, who prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell was convicted. She was sentenced to 20 plus years in prison. She was put in that Tallahassee facility before being transferred over to the VIP facility in Camp Bryan, Texas. So you have that proceeding that took place in the Southern District of New York. She then appealed it to the Second Circuit Court of Appeal. They rejected her appeal. She then appealed to the United States Supreme Court. They rejected her appeal. So she's out of appeals. Any prisoner has the ability to file a habeas petition saying they're being unlawfully detained because there's new evidence that's out there or they found some extraordinary information that wasn't available to them during the time of trial that would bear on their claim that they should be released from prison. So it's not a unique claim to her. It's not an appeal. She's done with appeals, but she's using this habeas petition, I believe a frivolous habeas petition, as a pretext to try to invoke the Fifth or claim I still have to invoke my Fifth, which is total BS. Any lawyer knows that at this point, there's nothing to worry about self-incrimination because you've been incriminated. You were found guilty of child sex trafficking. Okay. But to me, this is all about delay, and ultimately her deal with Donald Trump to give her a commutation, or to grant her clemency, either a commutation or a pardon. Look at the filing that was recently made before Judge Engelmeyer in the Southern District of New York. He says, Judge Engelmeyer writes, on February 17, 2026, the pro se office in this district received a letter from Ghislaine Maxwell attached to this order as Exhibit A, the Maxwell letter. It requested inter alia just means among other things, further time to file an amended Section 2255 motion. That's basically her petition, her habeas petition, based on materials that the DOJ has released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. And so she said, look, I'm pro per, I need more time, please help me. And I don't have a lawyer, so I need more time. And I have to go through the millions of Epstein files that have been released because I believe this helps me, that this shows that I'm innocent. She actually argues that the release of the Epstein files, she thinks helps her and shows that she's innocent, when I think it makes her look far worse. I think she should be thrown in jail, in prison for multiple life sentences after what we all read in the Epstein files. But she's a sicko. And this is what sickos say. She goes, this made me look better. So the letter that she wrote to the judge, we have that published from February 17th, which the judge docketed on February 20th. This is what she says. She says, Ghislaine Maxwell writes to Judge Engelmeyer, to date, I have not had any access to any of this publicly disclosed material, as I am in federal prison without internet and without computer access to the new material. In compliance with that order, by this letter, I declare I require further time to file an amended petition for habeas corpus in light of the disclosure of 5.4 million documents by the U.S. government pursuant to the Epstein Transparency Act. The December 19th, 2025 revelation that the government had millions and millions of documents that I have never seen and were not disclosed to me when I had the benefit of skilled criminal counsel has significantly changed my position. So that Your Honor understands that the review of this disclosure and additional time required to undertake that exercise is of tremendous value and worthy of the additional time. I request, and I highlight here, just a few material pages that I have discovered relying on media reports. Here's what she claims that she's found from media reports about the Epstein files. And she said that she doesn't have skilled criminal counsel, so she needs a lot more time to look at this herself. She goes, the new material reveals that complainants, that the survivors, represented to be minors were not minors, and that the prosecution knew this at the time they misrepresented the ages of the complainants. So you see what this sicko is doing? You see what this pedo is doing? What Ghislaine's doing? She's saying the survivors were not actually minors. She says that was her revelation from the Epstein files, that the survivors lied about being minors, right? This pedo is a sicko right here. She goes on to say that images admitted for specific dates to prove abuse at a specific location did not accurately reflect time and place and therefore age of the complainant at the relevant time, and that the prosecution knew this when they put these materials before the judge and jury. Ghislaine saying that the photographs that were shown at her trial were fabricated and misrepresented that they were minors, basically, when they are adults. As I said, this pedo, Ghislaine, is a sicko. I mean, look at what the stuff she's writing. She goes that the non-prosecution agreement promises made by the United States precluded the SDNY from indicting me, and the text, facts, and circumstances underlying the negotiations of the non-prosecution agreement demonstrate the intent of the co-conspirator clause was global. So that's her argument, and she goes and lists that in more specifics. But she claims, I don't have a lawyer, and I need to prove that these survivors were not actually minors at the time they were sexually assaulted. When we've all read the files, she should have been charged with far more. She was lucky that she's only doing 20 years, and she's lucky right now. You talk about the Epstein class, right? She's in Club Fed because of Donald Trump trying to cover up this sex trafficking ring and whatever deal was cut between her and Todd Blanche. She was moved from the Tallahassee facility, and now she's out there pretending that she can't find lawyers, and she needs to make this argument that the survivors were not actually underage and that the photos are fabrications. Utterly pathetic. But then let's turn to the filing that she made with this law firm over here that goes through let's pull it open right here. When she's arguing over here that 90,000 documents need to be concealed that were produced in a civil case that was brought by Virginia Giuffre against her in the case Giuffre versus Maxwell. And so she talks about in this motion how she was sued for defamation by this law firm called the Boys Schiller Law Firm, how a civil protective order was entered into in 2015 or 2016 before depositions were taken and discovery and documents were produced and exchanged. And she says that Boys Schiller, the law firm representing Virginia Giuffre, turned over documents to the government during the first prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell, and it was obtained by the government through a grand jury subpoena, and that Ghislaine didn't know about it, and that those documents should never have been turned over to the government during the criminal trial through this grand jury subpoena. And now under the Epstein Transparency Act, the government is saying we have to produce these records now. And Ghislaine Maxwell is saying, no, these 90,000 records, which include multiple depositions of Ghislaine Maxwell, where she testified about things, and these 90,000 documents, highly sensitive documents, and I'm going to talk about what could be in these documents as well, potentially, that these documents should not be public and should not be produced. 90,000 documents and depositions need to be concealed. the reporting by Roger Sullenberger about documents and discovery in the various Ghislaine cases also talked about how there, this, at least in the Ghislaine criminal case, we know that a individual who made very serious accusations against Donald Trump regarding sexual assault, these documents were turned over to Ghislaine Maxwell in Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal case, and those documents have not been produced pursuant to the Epstein Transparency Act. So there's a set of documents. Remember the case we talked about, or the situation where someone who accused Epstein of sexual assault also accused Donald Trump of sexual assault in South Carolina. Remember those 2 accusations against Donald Trump that were in that one slideshow that the FBI put together. There was an underage girl who said that she bit Trump's penis, and he punched her, and there was like a whole situation, and there was horrible, horrific graphic stuff that was discussed in there. Again, those were accusations that were made about it, and people like, oh well, there's no accusations against Donald Trump. Then there was there is right there. Then there was another accusation about a survivor who said that Epstein brought her to Trump and said, what do you think about this one? Do you like this one? There's a lot of other accusations about Trump, but those were in that PowerPoint. So I don't know if those documents are included in this 90,000 that Ghislaine doesn't want out, but I wonder if Ghislaine was asked questions about Trump. What other emails and documents are there that have not been produced? And Ghislaine's position is that those documents are subject to here's her argument. Those documents were turned over to the grand jury in the criminal case pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E, which regulates grand jury proceedings. And the prosecutors at that time, that's like Maureen Comey and that crew of prosecutors who prosecuted her, didn't disclose in connection with the civil case where there was a protective order that the civil case file, when Giuffre sued Maxwell, that file, which was subject to a confidentiality order, was turned over to the government. And so what Maxwell now argues is those Giuffre documents are Rule 6E material, are private grand jury, confidential grand jury information, and should not be produced. But one of the things we know in general is that grand jury material pursuant to Rule 6E is superseded by the Epstein Transparency Act, and that should be produced. All of that should be produced the same way other Rule 6E. Remember how the Department of Justice filed those motions to release Rule 6E material before the Epstein Transparency Act, and the courts were saying, oh, we can't release it. Then when the Epstein Transparency Act came out, it says they can release it. So those documents should absolutely be released, but Ghislaine wants these 90,000 documents and wants all of that to be, and the depositions to be concealed. What are you hiding? What the hell is in these depositions? That should absolutely be produced. And I have to wonder, with all these different law firms that are engaged in this case, I just think there's a broader strat. As a former litigator, I'm seeing these things and I'm like, okay, well, she's got a lawyer in the House of Representatives. She has a lawyer on this civil case where these 90,000 documents need to be produced, and they're fighting to block the documents, yet she's claiming she's pro se or pro per to get delays and extensions. And by the way, because she was pro per, Judge Engelmeyer ended up actually giving her an extension. I mean, look right here at what the deadlines are that he gave her. That her filing, her reply is now due May 19th, 2026. Okay, so in her mind, May 19th, 2026, that'll bring me, by the time the judge makes a ruling, into 2027. That'll be the second half of Donald Trump's term. And I could try to effectively delay and stall all of this until then. And she'll keep claiming, oh, I can't testify. I have to invoke the fifth. And I think part of the deal, by the way, she doesn't have to invoke she has nothing to invoke the fifth about. Again, she's incriminated. Her appeals are done. This habeas thing is BS, but she's creating noise in order to create a pretext to not have to testify. And that's why then behind closed doors, I believe there's a deal with Blanche. You put her in Club Fed, this facility in Camp Bryan, Texas, where she's comfortable and she's doing yoga and things are great. And right, she's claiming that she can't access computers and read anything. She's in a top-notch facility. Of course she can access computers and read things and see things. So that's why I believe the Trump regime is behind this. I believe that I'm intrigued about who's paying for her lawyers. And if she's got a lot of money still where she's paying for all of these lawyers, and then the answer of why is she not hiring a lawyer for the criminal habeas? It's because she wants to play victim because she's a sociopath. And now she goes to the judge. Oh, judge, I'm just a pro per. I'm pro se. I don't know what I'm doing. I need more time. I need more time. Do you see the strategy? I know it's a long video, but I wanted to go through the complexities of what's taking place here and why I believe Trump and Blanche and Bondi's fingerprints are all over this plan. To me, the red flags are there. And then what's those 90,000 documents that she doesn't want to release in the civil case? What did she say in those depositions that are still being concealed from the public? There you have it. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.